Hey everybody, happy Saturday. It is the time this week we are talking about, overarching is the season of play, so we're bringing play to everything. Oh gosh, it's sunny out here, but I want you to be able to see me. Let's try that. We're talking about the season of play. We're talking about wheels for a wonderful relationship. We're talking about how this week is how to keep the sex dirty before. So we have both the wheel, if you saw the new topic Tuesday, IG Live, you saw that wheel for how to keep the sex dirty before, all the tips that we have at forbetter.love under that category. And if you haven't checked out our blogs on forbetter.love, they are all categorized into how to keep the fights clean and how to keep the sex dirty. And of course, I mean dirty in the best way possible. But timing is everything, so you can check them out by before, as it starts, during, and after. So there's 8 different categories to look at depending on what's going on in your relationship. But today, I want to talk about those things. Play, right? It's the season of play. I'm Gaby, known as the Love Trifecta Coach, because I help couples, mostly married, but sometimes not, create more play, peace, and passion in their marriage and get more of what they both want. So it's not fighting each other over whose needs gets met or who's to blame for what conflict or, what there is to complain about, but it's actually about, hey, this is what I want and my desires mean something good about me, and this is what you want and your desires mean something good about you, and what are those 2 beautiful sets of desires, not demands, desires, what do those 2 overlapping look like? And then how can we be playmates and allies towards making that happen? That's what it's all about For Better Love. You don't have to love perfectly. Nobody's going to, so don't bother trying or expecting it. It's about loving better and building our couple culture of what's normal in your relationship. How do you talk to each other? Now, yesterday was a doozy. So in terms of you talk about what's normal and not normal, just being completely transparent, because relationships, none are perfect. They all hit their spots, right? My husband and I, Raj, we really had our spots in the first few years of our marriage. People even before we got married told us not to do it, even at the engagement party, even at the day of the wedding. But our intuition was so strong, and so we did the work and made it playful, made it a habit so that it was spread out over time and not like fixing problems. And we got better and better and better at that. But we still slip up. Next month's free masterclass is on the healthy habits for introvert extrovert couples. Now, that's a lot of couples out there. I'm the extrovert, Raj is the introvert. Now, I'm far more introverted than I was before I met him, and he's far more extroverted than before he met me, and yet we still have some key differences that will trip us up. And certainly, in the last few years and how stressful things have been, it just builds up. It's like this problem plaque, or I call it rift residue, or just there's this angst that's just kind of present. So a few weeks ago, I had a birthday party, and that was, it takes a lot, bring all the stuff out of storage and set it all up and clean it all up and all of that. So Raj was a little overwhelmed with how many people, and he had a great time and he loved it, but it's just stressful for him. For me, it's tiring, but I loved staying up till 3, 4 in the morning. I made fresh watermelon juice for my guests. I just enjoy it. And I enjoy the people being over. I get recharged. I call it terrifically tired. Him, not so much. At any rate, this issue of introvert, extrovert, it trips us up. A few weeks ago, we had a little crunchiness about it. And then yesterday, I had an auntie come up to visit me. So good to see her. And she and her daughter, my cousin, were going to stay at my place, Raj and my place, and just enjoy the weekend for her birthday. And then there was conflict because my husband thought when we came home on Sunday, and I did too, but that's okay, that they were going to be gone, and he could Sundays are big for him to have his own space. Well, then that came up, so that wasn't going to happen, although I told him it's totally fine if you want them to go on Sunday. I support you. Sunday nights are your time, and if you need to come home, I'm happy that we're going away for the weekend. We're going to a friend's 50th birthday party right now. These beautiful trees where I am is a woman, a couple, but just the woman's here, that started as my clients but became my friends. So I'm actually visiting her, and we're picking her up, and then we're going to a 50th birthday party. So it's a lot of socializing. My mentor is having a I Survived Cancer party on Sunday evening. So when we drive home, the 3-4 hour drive home, 3-4 hour drive home, depending on traffic, it's going to be to just shower, change, and then go to something else. Now, he doesn't have to go. He does want to go. It's just that it's draining for him and it adds up. So we really hit some lows yesterday. You may know about the Argument Even Better Ifing tool. Maybe you've seen that. There's a blog on the website. And that tool, you go through and score your arguments. So I've done this with Raj. We use our tools. That's how we create them in the first place, is we make them up together. So there's 5 things that you want to score an Argument Even Better Ifing. I'm not entirely talking about the specific topic, but I just want to be authentic about what was really going on this week, right? So when you do an Argument Even Better Ifing, there's 5 questions to ask that you can score, with a 10 being like, woohoo, we're rocking it, and a 1 being like, wow, we're just not even on the charts, right? I guess 0's not on the charts. But the first question is how often does this conflict happen? Now, for Raj and I, we did pretty well, because the last time we had a conflict that got nasty like this was March of 2020. So that's 2 years and some change in a couple months, 2 years and 4 months. Before that, so we made up a rule. Let me backtrack a moment. We made up not a rule, but a game, a guideline, a part of our couple culture, that 3 years into our relationship, we said no name calling, no swearing. Let's just take that off the table, because it's emotionally and your central, for me anyways, my central nervous system, it's traumatic to have someone tell you to F off. And wasn't just him, it was usually instigated by me. But we just decided, let's take that out of our couple culture. Let's put that off the table. But as I said, it's not about loving perfectly, it's about loving better. And 1 month into COVID, we snapped. And I said, F you, but the full word. And he said, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. So he got in like rapid fire. Now I can laugh about it now, because that's not normal for us, right? So when you look in the Argument Even Better Ifing and how often does it happen. So for Raj and I, this argument, I give us like an 8 or an 8.5 for that. 2.5 years, 2 years and change is a lot to go without it getting that ugly. But in terms of the type of the argument, of the anxiety or the tension that comes up around me wanting to socialize or have guests, and Raj wanting more downtime to just recharge, that whole introvert extrovert thing, it's a pattern, right? It comes up for us. So the second question is, how extreme did it get? Now this one we would have scored low. I actually did fairly well. I could have been more generous, but Raj is the one who, poor guy, he suffers from anxiety. He's open about it, talks about it. He's been a huge, he's just been a hero for how he's addressed it. I won't say much about that, because that's his issue, but just needless to say, many couples out there, there's one or both that have anxiety over one area or all sorts of areas, specifically in this area of traveling and guests and just having a lot going on. It builds and builds and builds for him. And so it was building, and it got bad. Now I'm not gonna, out him, but there was name calling, there was some swearing. It was short, that's the third question, is how long did it last? It was short, but he kicked something and, threw something and called me a name and swore and left. But that is so not normal for us. That's so not normal. So when Raj says one particular line, I know that he's just in no state for us to be logical. And so it's my job, if you have a beloved and you know those signals, if they're out there, time to resolve conflict is not when you're in conflict. First, restore the connection. That's one of my mantras. Then resolve the conflict. So at any rate, when he said, it's always about me, it's never about you, you're always right, that's my signal that we're not dealing with the logic or the circumstance at hand, and he's just triggered. I was triggered too. And so at that point, when he left, I sent him a message and I told him I loved him, and I used our soothing mantra. You're getting lots of tools mixed in today. By the way, welcome for joining. If you have a question, just go ahead and let me know. I'm just sharing about the introvert extrovert blow up that Raj and I had yesterday. And the Argument Even Better Ifing tool, going through it, seeing about scoring it. So far we've scored how often does it happen. We did pretty well. I gave that an 8.5. How extreme did it get? For that, I give it like a 4 or 3. I mean, it was pretty bad for us, maybe even a 2. So maybe 2.5, 3. We'll call it a 3. Okay, the third question, as I mentioned, is how long did it last? Now, it didn't last too long because the fourth question is, did you use any tools? And it didn't last that long because we did use our tools. So as soon as Raj said that sentence, I knew it was like my snap out of it, stop being righteous about what's going on and just be loving and supportive and generous. He's going through something. And we used a tool of getting some support. My auntie was with me, and I checked in with her, and she went and spoke to Raj briefly. And then my father, who is a pretty interesting guy, we call him the Mystic Geezer. You may have seen him on Wild Wild Country. He's the lawyer that, if you saw the spoof on Saturday Night Live about Wild Wild Country, that he's the lawyer that gets so moved all the time he cries a lot. Well, he's our go-to guy, and so we like to go to my dad whenever there's conflict. My dad is actually Raj's, my husband's, coach as well. So within 5 to 10 minutes of if there's a big conflict and we really need some support, it's nice that my dad's not the kind of person that tells you what you want to hear. He's going to tell you what you need to hear, and he's going to let you, speak and be loving and compassionate, just the tone of his voice. But he does not sugarcoat things, and you often want to say, like, fuck you and thank you, because it's confronting, it's difficult, but it's really helpful. So, Dad, if you see this, thank you, I love you, I appreciate you, thank you for being our Mystic Geezer. Okay, so far we've got how... just thinking of my dad. We got how often does it happen, how extreme did it get, how long did it last, and did we use any tools? I mentioned I used the soothing mantra. Maybe I didn't mention that. But when I texted him and said I loved him, the soothing mantra is something I learned from Annie Lala and Eben Pagan at their intimacy intensive years ago. And they told me who they learned it from, but I don't remember, but I want to credit them. At any rate, they encourage you to create a phrase or something that you can say and do and you tell your beloved how you want it done. And when you say that and do that it just makes you melt, even if you're saying a script. So for Raj and I, one of our soothing mantras is, this is a dark moment, but it's only a moment, and we will get through it together, right? So I have it memorized, he has it memorized, and it just, now if we're together, what works for me is if he interlaces his fingers behind my back, puts me close to him, and puts his forehead to my forehead, and then he says that, it's like I go weak in the knees, just go weak in the knees. And so for me anyways, I'm pretty easy. And once Raj got the coaching, and once I got the coaching, and I used the soothing mantra, we were using the tools. So for using the tools, I give us an 8, because it was really intense and difficult, and we still used the tools. And then the last one is, did you learn any lessons? And if you could see the text messages Raj sent me yesterday, they're really beautiful, because having a breakdown doesn't have to be just a breakdown, as they say at Landmark Education. It can be the breakthrough, right? So don't just leave all of that conflict just to happen as conflict. Take it and turn that energy into something productive. I know we certainly are. One, I'm using it just for humility. Yeah, it's been almost 2.5 years since we had a conflict like this, but we still have them. We're still human. It still happens. And now it's okay. Can we go 3 years without a conflict like this? Like, what's the game? It used to be, if you're out there struggling right now, it used to be, could we go a day without conflict? When we first got together, this is why people told us not to get married. It was really messy. We had a lot of conflicts. I was really in my masculine. He was very much in his feminine. And over time, when we stopped blaming each other, I got to help him not find his masculine. It was already there, but just release the stories or the wounding that he had from the past, and me from my past, and that I could soften and he could step in. So we've been leaning into the lessons over and over and over again. So it's only been 24 hours, but I'd give us, just because I want to give us some time, I'd give us an 8 for that, because we're already talking about how to fold this into our relationship goals, how we can lean in and do even better next time. And by the way, one of the other tools that we use, we're slipping in all sorts of tools today, it's called the 4 pillars of an awesome apology. And this is like graduate level stuff. Raj and I just wanted to get practiced and have it be easy to apologize, not be like, well, I shouldn't have to apologize, and all of that kind of stuff that we say. And just if there's a conflict, then whoopsie daisy, we like slipped, right? And so how can we remedy that, right? It's not that it's anybody's particular fault, but okay, so here's the 4 pillars of an awesome apology. Should you choose to accept this mission, as I like to call it, your action option, and that is 1, I fucked up. Okay? It's as simple as that. And if you don't want to, swear, then you just say, I messed up, right? The second is, I'm sorry. The third is, please forgive me. And the fourth is, what can I do? The 4 pillars of an awesome apology. I'm sorry. I fucked up. Please forgive me. What can I do? Some of those are interchangeable. I mixed up the first and the second one there. Make it your own, as my mentor Skip Downing used to say. How can you use and adapt this? So take the parts that work for you. But the point is to not be a doormat. If you say, I'm sorry all the time, I'm not talking about that. This is for healthy practices and in a balance. Now, when I say in a balance, don't expect your beloved to be just like you or good at the same things that you are. You might need to take the lead in some areas and be the model and be the one inspiring. You want to create the opportunity as a pleasure, not as a pressure. Like, we need to talk. No one wants to hear that. No fun at all. No fun at all. So this is Saturday. I'm Gaby Sundra, the Love Trifecta coach, helping couples get what they both want and bring more play, peace, and passion into their relationship and marriage. If I can be of any support to you, please go ahead and reach out on DM or go check out forbetter.love. You can come and see me here and ask questions every Tuesday at 2 o'clock Pacific. I'm in Santa Barbara usually, sometimes Sequim, Washington, but both of them Pacific. Today we're checking in from Laguna. I can see the ocean, I can hear the ocean. Lucky to be here right now, so beautiful. Summer day, right? But wherever I am on Saturdays at 11, I'll be jumping on as well. Now, Saturdays 11, we're calling it Go Ask Gaby, so feel free, ask me a question, whether you're coming live or whether you want to go ahead and ask a question. Oh, thank you, my honesty and your soothing voice. Thanks. I'm actually being a little quiet because there's a family up above me and their baby is swimming in the pool for the first time, and they've been oohing and eyeing, and it's just been so cute. But that's very, very kind of you, especially because the first 2 years I was with Raj, everybody kept saying to him, I don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it. And they kept saying to me, you're so much softer. You're so much softer. And I never realized what a hard ass I was, but I was very much wanting to be in my masculine and to be successful and whatever that means. And from a masculine perspective, and I had a lot of aunts that did not marry so well, and several of them would refer to men as dead weight. So if Raj ever, quote unquote, needed me, it's like, oh, great, now I've got to do this. But really, he lost his father at a young age and never grieved. So he spent his whole life trying to grieve unconsciously and never being comforted. And I kept saying, get up, you ain't hurt, to people. Not so bad, but a little bit. So now I've learned so much compassion, and as soon as I showed him some compassion and held his grief and the different ways it came out, it stopped almost overnight. Once we stopped blaming each other and embraced that we chose exactly the things that were going on in our relationship, we've now been together 16 years, married for 14, and even despite that yesterday was, that was a tough one, we can laugh about it. My dad even, we called him on the drive down later on when we had gotten through a lot of it, just to let him know how we were doing. And when he answered the phone, he said, are you still married? And we said, yes, we're still married. And the point is that we laugh about it because we know we love each other, and we know that that is not part of our couple culture. But sometimes shit hits the fan, and sometimes it's really difficult. And it's important to, whoever can muster the strength to be there for their beloved. We have another thing we say to each other sometimes, which is, Do you need some loving? Instead of like, don't take your stress out on me, and actually mean it, not be like, do you need some loving? Like, what's your problem? That's like Gabby 2007. I'm an optimist, so sometimes when people are unhappy, I'm like, what's the problem? Like, we've got so much to be grateful for. But, the moment-to-moment experience and person-to-person experience is different. Did you ever feel like he would put up a drama sometimes just to get your compassion? That's a good question. My intuition and my instinct is no, that he truly has and had, but he has done so much healing work on this, has had a childhood wound that his whole family just coped when his father passed when he was 12, and no one really grieved. So all the time it would be or fuck, if something happened and I'd go running into the office like, what happened? He's like, oh, this thing. And it was not a big thing. But he feels terrible of the impact of the anxiety. Although I will say, once we were in an argument, the one in March of 2020, and I said, your anxiety is exhausting. And he said, well, so's your optimism. And I totally got it. I've done enough personality assessments that have told me one warning and alert, your optimism is annoying to some people. So I totally get it. It can be exhausting when someone's always looking for the silver lining. And I don't say always, I do have spaciousness, but I don't think he would do it to get my compassion. And if he was, then that would be something I would try at my best, is to be compassionate about that and to say, is he... you might even do a needs check. I like to use the nonviolent communication from Marshall Rosenberg, sometimes called compassionate communication. He's got 7 core human needs that he talks about, and they are connection, honesty and trust, autonomy, mastery and purpose, play, physical well-being, and peace. Right? And so either once a month or once a week, we have different meetings, my husband and I. We call them our marriage meetings, so that we don't talk about the functional stuff or even the fight and conflict stuff just any old time, but during that specific time. And it's just allowed us so much flirtation and other space. But during that time, we can go ahead and look at what's going on. How are you doing in those 7 core human needs? I learned a great tool from our well, they lead now, but I used to lead, and then we co-led, but the leads at Camp Mystic at Burning Man, Brian and Jennifer, they taught us this practice of body, mind, heart, spirit. And so when Raj and I sit down for these meetings, the first thing we'll do is either the 7 core needs or the body, mind, heart, spirit, and just give it a score from 10 to 1 on how we're doing, so that we're not waiting for an argument to come up. But if somebody is not feeling appreciated, if somebody is craving, by the way, when not feeling appreciated, a great question to ask your beloved is, what would you like to be acknowledged for? Right? So I'm of the belief that if someone wants love, give it to them. We're like little kids of like, look what I can do. Look what I did, right? We all want attention. We all want appreciation. And not that we should cow-tie to each other's needs and feed this insatiable need, but let's actually develop a culture where each other's needs and happiness is actually important to us. Raj and I have a wedding vow. I promise to care, not cow-tie. I promise to care about your experience and happiness, even when it conflicts with my own. And that really helps guide us to this place of it's either win-win or no deal, which is a game I learned from one of my clients. Let's see. Yes, yeah, the anxiety of your 17-year-old. I have so much compassion. I have family members that I don't have children, but I have family members with some children. I have family members that suffer from anxiety and depression. As I mentioned, my husband, his is more anxiety than the depression. And yes, I imagine, that's got to feel terrible that when you got divorced, he got depressed. Now, I hope, being that he's so young, that he's learning early on to get some support, because we have pretty close to epidemic proportions. And I heard a wise teacher once say something like, anxiety and depression are appropriate reactions to the state of the world, because it's a tough time, and we really have to cultivate and look for that joy. And so let's be compassionate with whether it's with our kids or with our beloveds when they're having a tough time, because often when we're having a tough time, we don't come to you all soft like, oh, I'm having a tough time, can I get some support? What's that great quote? People need your love the most when they deserve it the least. So thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate whether you're here live or watching the replay. As I said, I don't know if you can see this if I turn this around, but you see the ocean right through there? I don't know if that blue's coming through, but I'm at my friend and client, started as a client, became a friend, but I'm at her place and we're going to go off and have something to eat and meet up with Raj and then go to our friend's 50th birthday party. So we can go from, oh my gosh, in the olden days, in the early days with Raj and I, a fight like yesterday, there's no way we'd still be here with friends. You know, it would have just completely thrown us off. And now we know how to make it a habit for how we deal with conflict and make conflict less and less of a habit. So I'll see you here on Tuesday at 2 Pacific or on Saturdays at 11. Come bring your questions. If you can't come live, then send it to me in advance, DM me, and keep an eye out for our next live free masterclass, which is on July 7th on introverts, extroverts, healthy habits for introvert, extrovert couples. Thanks for being here. As I said, I'm Gaby Sundra, your love trifecta coach, bringing more play, peace, and passion so that you get what you both want. Take care.